Welcome to Inside Abode, ladies and gentlemen. How y'all doing? Dave Jones. I'm here once again. It's been actually a couple of weeks. We've just had a lot going on. It's been a busy spring. We've had just I don't know. It's always busy though. I mean, it's as you know, like it's real estate. That's just what we do. So for a couple things I want to talk about today, first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that it is National Fair Housing Month. April is National Fair Housing Month, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But before I get to that, like I say every time, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. We'll try to come with some new stuff. Did you notice the new joint at the beginning, the new little jingle? We're trying to go into a new little new era. You know what I'm saying of Inside Abode, so that's pretty dope. But I want to get into all of this stuff and this information. I'm on this live tip. So fair housing. April is Fair Housing Month for real estate in our industry, and I know a lot of people that are not in our industry are not aware of Fair Housing Month and the excuse me and the Fair Housing Act that was signed into and that was enacted in 1968. Actually, April 11th, 1968, to be exact, by Lyndon B. Johnson. So a lot of people don't realize that was signed into act, or that, I'm sorry, that was signed by Lyndon B. Johnson a week after the MLK assassination. So it actually was signed in response to MLK being murdered. So think about that real quick. Like, first of all, what it did was it basically said that you can't discriminate based on race, color, origin, national origin, or your religion. So so you might be thinking in your head, like, so you mean to say that before that you could discriminate housing based on race, national origin, or religion? And the answer is yes. It happened quite a bit actually. And I know that some folks had looked at titles before. You come across titles still that say the verbiage, and it's different. It hits a little bit different. I'm gonna be real. It hits a little bit different when you see it. You're pulling up the title, you're going to sell a house, or you're going to look at a house, and you look at the supplements or whatever, and you see that in the writing that only Caucasians could buy in certain areas. It hits different when you actually read it. And that wasn't too long ago, ladies and gentlemen. Like, we're not even in the 60s of this century. It's not even 100 years. You know what I mean? So we're only about 50 years removed, a little over 50 years removed from that. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that. Like, literally, you can't buy somewhere because of the color of your skin. You know what I'm saying? Like, really think about that. Like, that's crazy. So when we think about the harm that has been done at that time, in the time leading up, which is decades and decades and decades and decades, that Black and brown people have not been able to, get, you know, amass wealth or have access to home equity or pass down that wealth to younger generations. And then also, not only that, we're forced into other areas where it was less desirable and then over policed and underfunded and not with don't have healthy food, less trees, the tree covering is less, you know what I mean? Less medical help. You just start to put all the systems together, and it starts to hopefully make sense for you of why things are so nuanced and so deep. And hopefully we're in a space that we can repair that and not, just ignore it. So that's National Fair Housing Month. We'll have more on that, but I think that that's just interesting that, a lot of people don't realize that it came after MLK's assassination. It was actually in response to 1 week after. And in addition to that, people don't understand, or I'm sorry, not understand. You obviously understand. You're grown adults probably listening to this. Sometimes people also don't realize sometimes that MLK was a fierce housing advocate, really fierce housing advocate. And he knew that was part of the economic drive and way to build wealth for families. And so he started speaking out on that quite a bit. And he was a staunch advocate for housing. So, I think that there's the history behind the Fair Housing Act and what it means is really important because it is directly tied to Martin Luther King Jr. and his assassination. And have we lived up to that? I'll bring up some data in maybe a future podcast, because I want to talk about the market in this one. But I just wanted to acknowledge that it is Fair Housing Month, and we'll be having content all month on Fair Housing Month, just educating people, educating other agents, educating whoever wants to be educated on National Fair Housing Month. So anyway, it was really cool. Earlier this week on Tuesday, we got to represent Tacoma Pierce County Association of Realtors at the city council meeting for the declaration. So Mayor Woodard gave the declaration of April is being Fair Housing Month in Tacoma, and we were down there to do that. Shout out to Spencer, Victoria, Jordan, and we all went down there and repped Windermere Abode, and that was really dope. And at the same time, we had a new head chief or chief of fire department get installed as well, and so it was really dope. Everyone was in there. The whole so many fire department members were in there, and family, and she got installed. Siona Stallings, and I don't want to butcher her last name, but she got installed, and it was really special. Actually, it was really dope. It was historic for our city. You know, just a really, really dope moment. You can go check it out, look it up. Maybe I'll link it down in the bottom or something like that. So we did that. What else? I think that's about it. Just being busy, you know what I'm saying? So we're busy here at Abode. It's our spring market is here, man. So that's what we're doing. We listed actually last week was the marathon listings week, not this week. Let's go into the macro market. Let's take a look at some stuff that's going on here. If you have any questions on Fair Housing Month, also, hit me up. I'm always open and available to talk about that stuff. I think it's important that I keep learning and everybody else keep learning so that we can help repair the harm that has been done over 400 plus years. And then in addition to that, Jim Crow, you got and it still goes on to this day when you look at subprime mortgages and where they were being targeted in the 2008, before the 2008 crash. Those were actually being targeted for Black and brown communities. So you had actual racism and redlining going on in 2006, 7, 5, forever. It just kind of moves to other places. And we may sometimes not know that we're doing that, but my hope is that we at least try to repair and harm and think about those things while we're practicing and trying to be the best we can be for our clients and everybody else and teach about housing and all of that. So let's see. What's our first one or first thing I want to talk about today? So the macroeconomic markets. Obviously, everyone's hearing about the tariffs and whatnot, but also with that comes these mortgage rates. So here's a story real quick about lowest mortgage rate in 5 months. This is from Mortgage News Daily. And it talks about, the tariff announcement, obviously. This is from Thursday, I think, and the correlation between the bond yields and mortgage rates. But you can see here that mortgage rates dropped down to about about the mid sixes, 6.60. It says right here as of the 4th, which is today. So 6.60 mortgage rate. So we've been talking about mortgage rates and lower mortgage rates this whole time, right? I mean, we've been wanting lower mortgage rates, and it seems like we have them now. And, but obviously our whole economic outlook right now is not good, not doing well. But, I think that I have a hot take on that. Maybe I'll go a little bit later, but a hot take on that. Well, I'll just say it right now. I think that while it may seem chaotic, and I think we've been saying this for a long time, actually for the last couple years, with the Fed rate being where it's at and the metrics that they're looking at, one of them being unemployment and some other things, I think that there's a silver lining in all of this. I'm not saying this I'm speaking from a place of privilege, obviously. But I think you had to bring some pain to this market to get those rates down. And, this is, you're looking at it. It just may not be the way that some people would do it. Are the tariffs going to last forever? I don't know. Nobody knows much. But, I think there is a method to the madness of some sort. And let's see. Let's take a look at this one. Like, for example, this is from Axios. This is basically saying like the mortgage rates sink on Trump tariffs, but other costs may deter buyers. So I think that, with the low mortgage rates, we've been wanting low mortgage rates for all this whole time. But like you can see here, when mortgage rates decline, home buyers have more purchasing power. We know that, right? But today, the broader state of the economy, as well as the impact of tariffs on construction costs, could make it difficult for would-be buyers to capitalize on lower mortgage rates. So that's pretty telling. Falling rates would juice the housing market, but the general economic uncertainty will hold it back, Joel Berner, senior economist at Realtor.com, tells Axios. So while like we have these drops in mortgage rates, we have the lowest mortgage rates in 5 months right now. If you've been sidelined, this might be a great opportunity for you right now. You know what I'm saying? Like this might be the time. Not this time, but anytime in the next month or two. But who knows? Is it going to go down or up? I don't know. I can't really predict that. I don't think anybody can, especially with the orange man. Let's see here what we got. So this is an interesting one too. So this one's talking about Trump is calling for a rate cut to rescue markets, why he might be right. So it's almost like we have this like hold off, it feels like, with between the orange man and the Fed chair Jerome Powell, who does not go by anything that the president does. Any president, doesn't matter who the president is. They're not. They go by the economy and numbers. So, I feel like there's this standoff between the two, of some sorts, and this article kind of alludes to that, I think. But this year, it says, but this year Trump may be onto something. He has consistently called for the Fed to cut interest rates as soon as possible, and some economists now think that would be a smart move, to hopefully, deal with this impending recession that we're all talking about with the tariffs and all that kind of stuff. At the moment, the Fed's benchmark rate is a range of 4.25 to 4.5%. That's higher than normal, which is seen around 3%. So 3% is what's considered the norm for the Fed rate. Now, I want to say that the mortgage rates are not dictated. They're in part. They're not. The mortgage rate is not the Fed rate. They're not the same. But the mortgage rates have been going down just based on the macroeconomic sentiment right now and what's going on and all the other stuff. But the Fed rate has remained where it's at. So if the Fed rate does come down, then the mortgage rates hopefully will respond to that and come down as well, but we don't know. Powell said Friday, which is today, that rates are modestly restrictive, in order to bring down inflation, which has remained stubbornly high. So, that it just seems like I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not any of those things. I'm a real estate brokerage owner. But I will say that, I do follow these markets and I do understand like the levers. But, I just think that it's interesting that they're having this kind of back and forth, in my opinion, that, he's trying to force the hand of the chair. So will Jerome Powell start lowering the rates? Who knows? Oh, let's talk about that. Where are the rates going? Let me see if do I have it in here? I think I do. Where are the rates going? So here, let's look at the CME. Let's look at the Fed Watch. All right, so this is the Fed Watch tool. So you can see here, May 7th, which is next month, it'll be the next time the FOMC meets to decide whether they want to lower the rates or not, the Fed rate. And it looks like the markets are saying there's about a 61.2% chance that it stays and about a 38.8% chance that they could cut a quarter point. So I'm going to keep my eye on this because this could be interesting to watch as we get closer to May 7th and we move through this month. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that rate right there because you just don't know what you just don't know what's going to happen. Like literally you can like have something happen in one day and then all of a sudden that just flip flops and it's more, 60% think that we are going to cut. And so why I'm looking at that is because again, I think that when they cut those rates and, the mortgage rates are already starting to go down in response to the sentiment, like, I don't know, it could be interesting. So let's get to the next question, which is how does that impact you? How does that impact Pierce County? Or not you, if you're listening and you don't live in Pierce County, it might track, but maybe not. Every market's different. So I would say talk to your local real estate agent, talk to that person you know that's in that market, in your market. And it could be even more specific to the city because I'm going to talk about Pierce County as a county. So you might want to talk to someone that is, well versed in your county and or city. But it might be interesting just to hear about what's going on in our county too. So if you're interested, let's go. Buckle up. I'll be try to be fast. Let's pull up. Let's pull up this one. So you can take a look here. This is Pierce County. This is from Northwest MLS data. This is a 5-year snapshot on just the median price. So this is from 2020. The median price in Pierce County was $369,950. And you can see here it just shot straight up. Obviously, we know what happened there. It went up to 560,000. And honestly, it's been kind of going sideways since then. May of 2022 was the peak for our median price, according to this chart. And from there, we dipped, obviously we dipped, but we've been moving sideways and kind of up. So we dipped down to 485 in December of 2022. And then, we started making our way back up. It got kind of not bullish, but just like optimistic in 2023. And then 2024, we did even better. And it's just kind of been moving up slightly a little bit. We got up to 553,000. We got up to 554,000 in August of 2024. And then we started moving back down at a low of 530,000 in February 2025. So where that takes us now is right back up to 545,000. Remember, our recent top in the last 5 years was 560,000 in May of 2022. And we are in February right now. I'm sorry, we're in April. And for March, it was 545,000. Okay, so and we're going into our spring and summer. So you can do the math or do the guesstimate of where do you think that's going? Is it gonna top out? I don't know what's gonna happen, but my guess is it's going to go up a little bit slightly. Maybe you could be looking at a 570, 580 top, maybe. I don't know. But it is going sideways and slightly up if I were to make a trend line here. Not by a lot, but just by a little bit, slightly. So that's interesting to look at. So if you're curious about prices in Pierce County, that's one thing there you can look at. So, another thing, let's take a look at what else we have here. Current statistics. Ooh, let's look at this. I like this one. So let's look at the pendings, like pendings with multiple offers. So I have right now, did I do all? Did I do zip? I did county. I did Pierce County here. So this is month to date. And I wanted to look at pendings with multiple offers. So if we look at the date range, which is the month to date right now, and the amount of contracts that have gone through, the pendings that have multiple offers, homes that have gone under contract, 32% of those have had multiple offers in Pierce County. That's a pretty interesting stat right there. And if you look at today, anything that's under contract today, 29% have multiple offers or had multiple offers prior to going under contract to the winner of whoever won that bidding war. So I don't know, 30%, so 70% of homes that are going under contract in Pierce County did not have, a multiple offer. So you still have a shot. If you're out there as a buyer, just know that you have a shot. This is a good time. Pendings with finance addendums, you had 83%. And pendings with an inspection addendum, you had 68% on the year. And then pendings with an escalation addendum, you had 8%. So 8%, so 92%, did not have an escalation addendum. So that's pretty interesting to look at. Let me look at this. I'm gonna stop that share. Let's look at something else. What else do we have here? I have some other stats to look at. I'm going to go over dual market. I want to look at the dual market stuff. So I like to look at months of inventory personally, and I'm going to look at, what's this one? I wanted to do, this is a dual market chart. So this is months of inventory based on pended sales. And when you look at this, you can see that, we're at 1.1 for the month of February. But what I want to do is go down to, it doesn't have March on there just yet, but I want to go down here to the table, and you can see that, for 0 to 700,000. So this is this part of the market. So this is only the price range of 0 to 700,000. You can see here that we had 1.1 in the month of February, but I want to go a little bit closer to today. So previous versus the current month to date. So the month to date, we have 1 month of inventory for 0 to 700,000 or 699,000 if you want to be exact, which does matter. And that is not very much. So, if you're looking at year to date for that price range, so 0 to 700,000 year to date. So year to date right now, it would be 1 months of inventory. So that's from 0 to $700,000. I wanted to break this up into 2 markets because what I was seeing in our office was that, if you had a higher price point, which this is kind of rule of thumb anyway, if you had a higher price point, especially with higher rates, if you had a higher price point, it might, the days on market might be a little bit longer. It's a smaller market. So, in Tacoma, our median hovers around 500. I haven't looked at it. Maybe I shouldn't on here, but so, I think that when you're looking at the market, I like to look at the dual market because there's even markets within the market, and that's what this is. That's what that represents. So let's take a look at. I want to look at the next market. So let's go to the market above that. The market above that. So we're going from 700,000 to 2 million, let's just say. So 700,000 to 2 million, that market, it looks a little bit different. As you can see here, remember we had 1.1 for the month of February. Here it's 2.6 months of inventory. That means if you were to stop putting homes on the market, it's going to take you 2.6 months to get those, to absorb those homes. So that's quite a stark contrast from 1.1, having 1.1 months of inventory, for the 0 to $700,000 range. So these dual markets are real. This is based on pending sales, and let's look at the month to date for that. So current versus previous year to date. So for this month, it would be for this price range, 700,000 to 2 million, it'd be 3 months of inventory. What was it on the last one? Let's see. So we had 3 months of inventory. That's crazy. 3 months of inventory for that price range. And for the other one, we had 1. So 3. That's 2 months inventory difference. That's crazy. That's wild. So, think about that when you're out searching or when you're doing stats or anything like that. Like, take a look at, break down the markets, because those markets are 2 specific, just way different markets within the market of that we have of ourselves, the market itself. So I think I have something else to share with you. So that was months of inventory. Let's look at, we can do the same thing for, active listings and whatnot. So this is 709, 2 million. So let's just do, I want to do the first one first though. I'm going to share 0 to 700,000. So 0 to 700,000, you can see here we have the pendings, for sale, sold, and pended. And if you look at that, you can see the red line. The red line here is the pended, and that fluctuates as you can see there. It's gone up. So from December, obviously we hit a bottom, and typical, which is typical. December, it's holiday season. People aren't necessarily out too active in the markets, but then it goes up. It shot straight up in January, which was fascinating as well. And you can see here, there's what I like to look at, and this is just the simpleton version for me, because this chart to me doesn't really do it for me. I'll just be honest. I don't like it too much, but what I look at personally on this is the for sale versus the sold. So the gap between the for sale versus the sold. Now, if you were to look at this back in 2020 and 21, it would be completely opposite. You'd have the dark green that was way high, and the for sale would be way low. It was almost opposite. Like we did not have any homes to sell. Whereas now there's homes to buy. So that means that our for sale is higher than our sold. And then you can see the pendants, the ones that went under contract. So our pendants are close to the for sale, which is pretty interesting. Look at that gap. There's a very small gap there, and then you have a smaller gap. We'll see next month or moving forward how this gap looks. But on this particular chart, I just like looking at the trend via the colors and the bars. So let's take a look then at the upper end of the market, which is looking at 700. Let's see, it's this one. So this is 700,000 to 2 million. Now look at the gap. Look at that gap. And this is in Pierce County. So for sale versus sold, which is the green down here. And then you have pending. There's not that much of there's a huge gap on the for sale versus the pending. Why is that? Well, like we talked about earlier in the podcast about the rates, the mortgage rates. And when they go up, your buying power goes down. So, with the higher rates at the, 7 million to 2 million, or I'm sorry, 700,000 to 2 million marketplace, that dual market, that upper part of the market, you're going to be sitting maybe a little bit longer. You're going to have to do a few things. Like, that's just the data. You look at this, like, look at towards the end of last year. It was crazy. Like how big of a gap there was there, stuff was sitting. And that's just market conditions. That's the numbers. That's what we're looking at, and that's not necessarily anything we can do about it except for, hopefully list our house, and market it well and make sure that we're trying to find the clients that we can get that might be interested in that home. So I think that's all I have to share with you on those fronts. Lowest mortgage rates. Yeah. So hopefully that helped a little bit. Just a quick primer, a little update on the markets around here, what's going on, what I'm looking at. I'm obviously there's more stuff. I could do this for another hour. But there's tons of stuff. We'll have more stuff to come in the future, and hopefully with that, you got a little something out of this. If not, then hopefully you knew everything and you're just smart and you just know everything. That's cool too. But we're gonna have more episodes of Inside Abode coming up, and it's just some more community stuff, and again, we're gonna have more fair housing things coming along, and our people are really busy and they're grinding. Hopefully you're enjoying the sun coming out and all that. And with that, I'm at my mark. I'm at a half hour. I've been talking too long. So with that, y'all be good. All right. Peace.